lot of the local families now are receiving lands back and planning different developments for that area. Some of the areas are zoned hotel, and you're talking about putting the major power plant in the middle of the most populated area of the island, where to the north you have Dededo, to the south you have Tum on Harmon, and to the, I guess that would be the east, you have Veragata Heights. And so we have to look at not only from the practical side of GPA's efficient operation, but also the impacts to the community. And I think that we have to look at this again very carefully and look at whether this area is the best solution for the community, not just for GPA. Thank you very much.
Marcel, do you happen to know the zoning of your property that you're the administrator of?
The zone was actually a commercial zone, but I petitioned the legislature to change the zone from commercial to industrial. And the reason for that is not so that we can use it as an industrial use, but we have the flexibility to pursue different opportunities. Because as Felix knows, and I know, because we were both in planning, that as the zones graduate, more uses are allowed, and you don't have to go through the scrutiny of the Land Use Commission if you have a higher zone. So to answer your question, the property is on M1. There's a request now to rezone this to M2, which is heavy industry. And you have to look at, again, compatible uses for your surrounding neighbors and the impacts and the impacts to the surrounding neighbors.
I just have to emphasize one thing, Marcel. It's the fact that what we're talking about is not what you see down on campus. So if you go to Burbank, California, for example, you'll see a power plant just to the west of I-5, surrounded by schools, residences, businesses. They're all around it. And that's what we're talking about. We're talking about plants that are compatible with developed areas. The old days, you had to put a power plant way out in Timbuktu because it was not what we're talking about today. But what we're talking about is entirely different from what you see at Cabras. You're not going to see a Cabras. You won't see that. You're going to see something completely different. It's going to look like warehouses, big warehouses, and other things. And so in populated areas, they have them. In Denton, Texas, they're constructing what we're actually talking about, which is even better than the one in Burbank, California. It's even lower level. I think when we get to the actual construction and the actual designs, you're going to see them even smaller, lower. You won't, I don't think you even see them from the road. Okay, so.
Could you find me one right next to a major hospital?
There are, I didn't find one next to a hospital, but I'm trying to tell you that in Burbank and in Denton, they're right in the middle of everything. They're not far away. But if you go to California, you have some major hospitals right in the LA area, and their power plants are right along the coast. If you drive out to Manhattan Beach, if you drive out to Huntington Beach, there are major power plants right there. And the reason why they're there is because they're sucking up the cool seawater, cooling off their plants and shoving it back out to the ocean. That's exactly what we were doing down at Cabras. And EPA doesn't like it. They're really upset with that. And we're destroying the environment by doing that. This location allows us to take the wastewater that we are now going to be treating at secondary treatment, which is what's required in the mainland, because they dump their effluent into lakes and rivers, and then they pull out their drinking water from there. There are certain locations like Guam, Hawaii, San Diego, California, Alaska, where they dump their effluent into the ocean. So it's a little different. But we're going to even make it cleaner than that. We're not going to affect the ocean, because we're going to treat it. So I'll tell you, in California, there are power plants, massive power plants. We're not even going to go there. What you have by your hospital, when that plant is running, what is the effect on your hospital?
The plant that you're proposing?
No, the plant that you have, the current plant you have.
Well, it's rarely on, right?
No,
Because
no,
we're
no,
hoping you
I'm
guys
just
are,
saying,
you know, we're
I'm
only on when
saying.
you're not on, but.
No, I'm asking simply, when it is running, what do you get from it? How does the hospital, what is it, what do you feel? What do you get?
Well, we're running, we have 3 generators.
Yes.
We only need to run 1 to power our whole hospital, but
Yeah.
it's, you know, it's a risk, but
Yeah.
usually it's on very little. And that's the problem. If, let's say you have a disaster at your facility, God forbid,
Mhm.
but that will likely, if it's a fuel disaster, mean we can't power up our generator because we're so close to your fuel disaster, our generator could blow, and now we got 130 lives that are at risk because we don't have power.
You're not going, that's not what we're talking about. What we have down at Cabras is exactly what can blow up. What we're going to build is not that.
It can't blow up.
It won't blow up. It will stop.
Or there can't be a fuel burst or a fire of sort or anything like that.
It's going to be really hard for that to burn like that. You probably have to put an explosive in to blow it up. But normal
Well,
use,
in this day and age, that's not too unlikely. when
but
we
then
got
that could happen
North Korea
anywhere.
threatening
That could happen down at Cabras too. That could happen in your place.
Well, yeah, but what's around Cabras that would be that dangerous compared to a hospital with some of the sickest patients on the island?
Yeah, there are a lot, okay, let me remind us. This is only 30 miles long, 8 to 10 miles wide. It's not that big an island. And so anywhere you go, you're going to have an impact. When you have a crash up at Nimitz Hill, that Korean Airlines had, everybody knew about it. The smoke covered the whole place. So this is a small island where you can't put it anywhere. There's very little places to put it. And I'm just saying that, you know, we've gone and looked because we are very concerned too, but you need the power. And we are looking at technology, and new ways of doing things that it's right in the middle of populated areas. Like I said, in California, you have a lot of hospitals up and down the coast. Their power plants are right there. And they're massive power plants.
John, did you want to say a couple more words and then we got
Yeah, your question is what's next to the power plants down there? What's the name of that middle school there? St. Rios? St. Rios Middle School, just across the street. So again, you know, and that's been a complex area. And then we have the port employees on the other side. As you may have heard in the news recently, they've been complaining about fumes no, it's not been but again, these are issues that and again, we're not, to get all of that or any scenarios for that, this is a clean burning power plant that has the same more stringent criteria for approval than even the generators that you have. No? And so again, this is the other thing I didn't add earlier is that, and I'm not trying to slap a lot of negativity, I'm just trying to provide the facts and the information. US EPA will not permit another power plant down there in the Cabras area because it's a non-attainment area. It may take even years to even try to get to convince them to do so. That's not going to happen. So when years come, we're not going to be able to do that. We don't have the space anymore down there to do that. And that's why we have to look at other locations that will not only satisfy our need, but also what may be in the best interest of the community in terms of, you know, providing our focus of energy and all of that. So that's just to answer some of those.
John, I just wanted to ask what the timeline is. So you're going through a process of rezoning the land, and then thereafter, what will happen? How long will it take for the power plant to actually turn on the switch, and then what happens after that?
We're going to the rezoning. I hope we get it rezoned yesterday, but if we can get it rezoned by here in January, February, that would be great, because the bid process is actually going to start. We have approval in January. We're going to have approval to go out with a bid, which will now just look for performance, financial, and experience qualification. And that will establish a short list on who's going to bid on this project. In the meantime, we're trying to concurrently get the land rezoned, complete the specifications with the land, so that we can provide the proponents by February or March the package of what they need to bid for. We hope to contract for this plan no later than the end of this year. And there's a whole process: the bid, the review, the approval of the CCU, the approval of the PUC. Then hopefully there's no protest, then we have to go to the OPA, and then from the OPA to maybe Superior Court. And so we hope we can get everything done by the end of this year, 2018. The construction time is going to take close to 3 years. So the plan is to be done by December 2021. And that is the plan that we are working on, that EPA wants to cut. And we're saying, I don't want to say what I said, but we're saying we need until December 31st, 2021 to get this plan on. So yes, it's a very tight timeline, but it's a process that, as best we can see. That's why we need the rezoning of the land. That's why it took us a little longer than anticipated to get the property as we had chosen, and that's where we're here today.
So you're talking for a diesel, ultra low sulfur diesel run plant. How long after that do you expect it to take before you graduate to LNG, which is a cleaner source?
As I mentioned earlier, it might be sooner than later, meaning I already mentioned to one chairman that later in the next 2 or 3 months, I may be bringing forward a recommendation to the CCU for the policymakers to look at, even before the plan is completed, to start bringing in natural gas. To bring in natural gas, that's why we're constructing the 2 pipelines. Like I said earlier, it's not whether we're going to do it or it's not necessary, it's just when it's going to get done. So then the next phase will be the going out for a bid for a floating storage regasification plant down at the port that will now house the natural gas. And then it will be LNG that converts to natural gas, center the pipeline to the power plant. So again, it's just within this next several years here, this will happen. The end result though is this: with the renewables coming in the ultra low sulfur diesel, and with natural gas as the backup diversified fuel, we're going to start seeing rates like this. And we're going to be able to control as best we can with these tools our destiny in terms of cost for the island, which we have no control today, as we can see. So again, this is why it's a 4-year horizon where we're just changing completely the way we've done things in the past.
Thank you, Jim.
Any more questions? Oh, man.
I'd like to thank you for being here. Several months ago, we had Mike McKeel from his architect firm present to us a proposal that one of the property owners several hundred feet away from this lot has for a 700 unit townhouse area, and they're going to build it in phases. They haven't had their public hearing yet for conditional use, but I'm concerned that if they do, this is already, you're having your hearing, you plan to rezone. I'm going to tell Mike, decide to do that, you're Johnny come lately because you haven't pushed. It's been almost a year since they did their proposal. And I'm hearing the concerns of the hospital and then other property owners that may want to develop. I know that the wind is going to be blowing towards the ocean, so it shouldn't affect them as far as any fumes. So any development, future development in the area would have had any effect on them?
We don't believe so, Mary. It's gonna be approved again, all this, things we're trying to, as I mentioned earlier. The other thing that I'd like to know, that, and again, this is not a threat, but a reality. There's no way that 700 homes or whatever is gonna come on the line without putting a power plant here sooner or later. But as far as the usage, as far as what we're building for the area, we're gonna make it where, you know, it's not hazardous to all the parents. So even if it's an M1 area, industrial, we're gonna make sure that the exhaust rises is the cleanest the US EPA has today, and that's why we're going to it. And that, again, as we look into the horizon, it's really going to be here. It's probably our last power plant that we're going to build, and the only one that will keep us out really out of EPA. So all of this development, as I mentioned earlier, if we don't do something, it's not going to happen. We need to do unless we put something. And where is it going to be? I'm not quite sure. All we know is that we found a location that I think has a lot of benefits. Yes, there's some risks here and there, but again, we're working real hard to make sure that we mitigate and satisfy the concerns of the community, including the department, and we'd like to know where that is, please, so we can put it into what we're looking at. And they can talk to us, actually. They can go and get a hold of Tracy. Tracy, try to be more low to you, but that's it. So thank you.
Yeah. Any more questions? Okay.
I can appreciate everyone's
Is there
concern
any
about.
more?
My name is Mike Salon. I live in EFAT, If you're wondering what I'm doing up here, it's just as everybody else.
But I can appreciate everybody's concern about the environment and surrounding it, you know, the population, the hospital. But you gotta understand also, folks, that we live on a small island in comparison to the States. I mean, we live vast land and everything, but wherever we go on the island, we're always gonna get, why my backyard? When we built the dump back down in the south, folks were screaming, why my backyard? Wherever we go, we're gonna have that complaint, or a comment, why my backyard? But if we don't, then we have nothing. This morning, I cut myself trying to shave when the power went off again. We need reliable power. And I believe that's what these folks are introducing to us. And as for the fuel that we use, it's one of the most cleanest burning fuels. I'm also an environmental compliance officer. And I've done plans and operations in the military too. And I see, what I see here, I see that they pretty much got their plan together. And your concern is, it's in my backyard. Well, what else do we have to offer? We don't have much of a backyard, no farm or what. But nonetheless, we need this to happen. And like I said, I can appreciate the concerns, but then what else do we have to offer? If you're saying, well, I got property, but somebody else adjacent to you is going to complain again. We're going to keep having complaints, but with complaints, what do we have to offer? What else? What else are we going to come up with? We forget we're a small island. And like I said, with what we have down in the south, we can't build anywhere. We're going to go up north, we're going to have problems with Anderson. We're down south, same thing. What was that term you used? We can no longer build, like down in PD, we can no longer build because EPA has give them restrictions. There's so much bombarded with our own local folk, complaints, I think.